What up? What up? Can I give myself a little bit round of applause?
You're exclusive.
I love them all. It's so hard to pick just. It's like trying to pick a child, a favorite child.
I also believe that everybody is special. And that's the thing, discovering what makes you special and different from everybody else.
So
Whoa, that's $8 to $10 million a month.
it was more than that. It was a lot of money, and we had a lot of perks, and I had over 300 gas stations that I operated.
Hello, Tom LaVecchia here, and we are here at the Lowell Hotel with the one and only Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street himself, who needs no introduction. Jordan, how are you doing today? And welcome to the New Theory Podcast.
Thank you. How are you? I'm doing great.
All right, it's awesome to have you on. So there's a lot to cover, so we're going to get right into it. I'd like to start out, I want to know who Jordan really is. There's a movie about you and all this other stuff. But tell us about your formative years and what makes you you.
Well, I think that, on many levels, it's like, I'm sort of like no one else in my family, so I'm the apple that fell really far from the tree. I come from a family very intelligent, highly educated, very hardworking, but they never took risks, and they worked for other people. So I think very early in my life, I linked up the fact that you can be brilliant, hardworking, but that doesn't necessarily and educate, not be rich. So to me, it was about learning how to go out there and take risks, take action, and also be in business for yourself. So I have a core belief that to really make a lot of money, you need to be self-employed, or certain industries like on Wall Street where you can work in a big bank and still leverage off their balance sheet and credibility. But for the most part, being self-employed, and also the importance of going out there and taking risks, of not just living life on defense, but playing offense and taking action and being offensive. And then also, lastly, is the importance of sales and persuasion, which has been an integral part of my life. My parents were so averse to anything having to do with influence, so I really saw how it held them back from really achieving the sort of success they were capable of. So it became a core belief of mine that people need to really learn how to express themselves in a way that they can sort of, share their hopes, their dreams, whatever, is on their mind, and in a way that connects with other people and moves them to take action. So.
Okay, so you were really a born entrepreneur. You wanted to succeed. Why did you want to be rich?
I've always wanted to be rich from about the time I can look in the mirror at 5, right? But I think the one experience that stands out in my mind when I was 11 years old and I wanted to buy a dirt bike, and my mom says, "Oh, we can't afford a dirt bike." I was like, "What do you mean you can't? You're a CPA." And they sat me down and they actually showed me, this is what we make each week. This is what our expenses are. And I was fucking appalled. I was like, that's all I couldn't. I was like, wait a second. I'm like, you guys are both college graduates, CPAs, and I couldn't. And I realized that when you want certain things in life, and I always wanted nice things, but that you needed money and so forth. I watched Dynasty on TV, and I saw the beautiful girls, the fancy cars, and so forth. So it just became a part of me. It was very, very young age.
Okay, so one of the things about Wolf of Wall Street is I think wasn't touched on is you grew, and I believe it was like $50 million a year, give or take, right? An organization. And although, there might be some questionability in terms of how it was done, et cetera, is a whole nother discussion, right? And that's documented, and you lived that. But however, the straight line persuasion method was the foundation of it. Right. So I want to know how you did it. How did you use a system to just make a lot of fucking money?
Well, I think that the straight line system is what allowed all these young kids to achieve greatness in their own lives, because and it goes far beyond just what happened at Stratton. All the kids that worked there, they took that skill set, that ability to persuade, close the deal, and they brought it to all different industries, and they were able to be successful. And I think that so many people out there in life, this is what I think is really sad, is that people think that sales is just for salespeople, and nothing could be further from the truth. Correct. Sales is an integral skill in whatever you do, and once you realize that, everything that you could be a lawyer trying to influence a jury.
Yes.
You could be a politician trying to influence your constituency, a pastor in your congregation, a mom or a pop trying to influence your children to make their better, do their homework, a teacher trying to sell your students on the value of education. So whatever you're doing in life, you always need this skill of, persuasion. And I, by necessity, I had these kids working for me, and I tasked them with calling the richest, most sort of, the toughest investors out there, and they couldn't close the deal with the old system I had, and I had to come up with a new way of teaching them to close, and a straight line. Just one day it hit me, this way of explaining a sale and mapping it out. And once I taught them the straight line, it was just like magical. I mean, the kids went from not being able to close to be able to close pretty much anyone who's closable. It was a phenomenal occurrence. And then, of course, I lost my ethical way and used it, and I got too big too fast, and it's almost worked against me because they were so good at what they did. I didn't know how to control the buying power, and that caused me to manipulate stocks and so forth. So it was just,
All right, because the thing is, it's almost like you're gaining the power and have to use it for good or not evil. And so here's my understanding of the straight line, and I'm going to break it down, is the closest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So if I'm able to have somebody engage somebody to onboard them to discuss is one part, then from there sell them on is another part, and then the third part is close them out, and then fourth part is maintain the relationship. So that's kind of my understanding of it. I hate to oversimplify it, but that's my understanding. It's pretty straightforward. It's kind of like sales for dummies. So do you want to maybe touch on that? Am I right? Am I far off? Walk us through that.
Well, I think that, the essence of the straight line is that there are certain core elements that have to line up in every sale.
Okay.
And those, it doesn't matter what you're selling. It could be a tangible product or an intangible product.
Yeah.
Offline, online, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And what happens is that most people who don't understand selling and persuasion or aren't naturally good at it.
Correct.
They tend to either not line up all those elements in a conversation, or if they try to do it, they do it in a random fashion. They let the other person control the flow of the conversation. So what the straight line is about is really, it's the intersection of a few different theories. Number one is that there are these 5 core elements that must line up, right?
Okay.
And so there are 2 ways to do it. You could either try to do it randomly, or you could say, well, what's the most empowering, what's the most logical way? Let me do it the same way every single time.
Yeah.
So with the straight line system, what we do is you learn how to take control of the conversation. Once you have control of the conversation, it allows you then to step by step line up these core elements in a way that is logical, intuitive, that empowers the other person also to think things through, makes it easy for them. Because at the end of the day, what sales is really about is certainty. You walk into a situation of influence, and you, the salesman, are really certain that what you have is awesome. Like, let's say you have a fund, a hedge fund, right? And you have this incredible way of making money, and it's proven. You have a track record, right? And you know that you can make investors money, right? But how do you explain that to potential investors in a way?
How do you scale it?
Well, how do you explain to them in a way that doesn't either scare them or sound too good to be true, or also, what do they need to hear? So with the straight line, it shows you that you do this first, you do this second, you do this third, you do this fourth, and ultimately, it's goal-oriented communication because you know what your end game is. I have to get them very certain about these things. And you do it in the same way every time with the straight line. It's it's almost a shift of understanding that you say, wait, okay, if I'm in control and I know what I have to accomplish, then I can actually go about it in a very systematic way. Versus the average person who walks into a sale like, oh my God, there's so much to do. What do I do first? And they're losing control of the sale, and it spirals out of control.
Okay, so there's different schools of thought. So I wrote a book, X Factor Selling System, and I like stated value. I like to come up and say, hey, here's what we're doing today. I'm going to try to sell you on this, blah, 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 and then go through finding out what the motivating factor is. Similar to straight line. I like your system a little better. You probably sold a few more books than me. But with that being said, then you kind of get to the end game. So then that where it's similar, the systems are similar. You get a guy like Grant Cardone. He wants you to build value so much, and then at the end drop the bomb for the close. Where do you sit on that spectrum? Up front, hey, here's what we're doing, and then build it. Then just like, hey,
I don't think there's any difference between what he's trying to accomplish and what I'm trying to accomplish. The difference is that the way I teach someone how to do that. At the end of the day, when he's talking about build value. Well, what he's saying is, and I think the problem, and I'm sure his systems, I don't really know his system, okay? But what he's saying is that you need to make it the person who's listening so certain that what you have is so awesome. Building value, meaning that someone becomes certain. When you're a salesman, you're trying to build certainty that that you'll have value, right?
Correct.
So you're building certainty. The value, the value is the value. You need to make someone else certain that the value exists. So as a salesperson, everything you say, everything you do is designed around building that value in their mind. Now, that being said, how can you do that if the person doesn't perceive you as an expert? If you're not in rapport with them. So for my system, I say, okay, this first things first. You're never going to be able to get to build value or to be, or to even make someone certain unless they perceive you as an expert, unless you're in control of the conversation. So with the straight lines, this is what you do first. First, you need to take control of the conversation. be perceived as an expert, ask intelligent questions, which helps you get into rapport. And then once you've established yourself as an expert,
right there for the business.
and once you've established yourself as an expert, and you know what you need to know about the prospect, then you could present to them and build that massive certainty. So I don't think that I would say anything different than Grant Cardone. I'm sure he means the same thing, but I'm very much the reason I think I've been so successful in training salesmen is because most people are not natural salespeople, and they need to be essentially taught how do you take control of the sale. And once you show them, they get it. Most people are very smart. They're like, oh my God, I get it. Here's how I do it. And once it becomes very liberating, and the rest becomes very easy.
All right, so that makes sense. Okay, so you kind of changed gears where you got out of, training, and then you got into training of great sales professionals. So tell us about the Synergy Global Forum that's on February 22nd. That's coming up. Tell us about what are you going to be talking about, what are you going to be doing. It's a one-day event. We need people to come, not because they should come, but they need to come. There's only a few tickets left, and it's a pretty serious event because, you normally get a lot of money to speak, get a lot of money to train, but this is a one-day intimate setting at the Marquee. Tell us what's going to happen that day.
Well, listen, I'm a big believer, and I've said this many times, that sales is not just for sales professionals. If you're an entrepreneur, just any human being looking to be more effective and to live a more empowered life, that learning how to communicate your thoughts, ideas, your hopes, your dreams, it's something you got to learn. And one thing that kills me is I think and I know this for a fact, there are so many brilliant people out there. They have these amazing gifts to offer, yet they can't offer it because they can't get it across to someone else, and they end up dying with their music on their lips. And I think that's a really sad thing. So I look at when I give seminars, I love doing it. It's like a passion for me. It's really about it's a one-day, all-intensive crash course in basically how do you become a master influencer, and not to be like me, but to be the best that you can be. It's not about perfection. I look at it this way. It's about being good enough so that it's not your inability to communicate that holds you back in life. Now, if you're a professional salesman, yes, you want to be a master, right? But if you're just anybody who just wants to, it's like the salt on your food. It makes everything else better. So I think it's a linchpin skill. And I'm going to be going through it, literally, and I love doing it, so it's my passion. So I give 120%, and I don't do them that often anymore because they're very draining, because I really give a lot. And this is the first time I've ever been to New York, so I'd really, if you have any mind on really improving your life, not just for money, but just how you feel every day when you wake up in the morning, go out and seize the day. Because, part of success in sales and in business is also the inner game. What happens up here between your ears before you ever go out into the world to take action? And so many people, they have a kind of a screw up inner game, meaning managing their emotional state, their belief systems, their vision for the future, and their standards. So the idea with this one-day event is to help people become congruent, to give them the skills both on the inner game of persuasion and success, and the outer game of persuasion and success. So we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship, and how do you start a business, how do you grow a business as well. And I'm a big believer in that. Even if you're a salesperson, you're typically in your own business. You want to look at it as a business. How do you build that? And what are the rules for learning how to do what I call failing elegantly? Like, how do you go into business and be wrong? Because so many times in business you are wrong. You want to test ideas out, new divisions. You need to be able to do that, be wrong, learn from it, because the lessons are in the failures. But then also to move on, and then what do you do when you're right? If you have an idea, as like your business is growing and doing well, right? How do you take that and turn it into a bigger business? How do you scale? So they're very different skill sets. So I want to go into that as well. But again, the core of it is really that when people leave, they feel like they can live a more empowered life. It's not just about money. You can learn to make more money, but it's about feeling better about going through life.
But one of the things we always say, especially in New Theory, we have a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business people, salespeople, and people have to invest in themselves. So by going to the Synergy Global Forum, they're investing in themselves. You can't go wrong with that.
Well, I think in the United States, it's weird. People will treat their pets better than they treat themselves. They'll invest more money in their pet than they will in themselves. And knowledge is the real estate of the 21st century. What you know, it matters. And I think that what you don't realize is that if you look at a really successful person, they will have some amazing skill sets that are congruent for their industry. There are specialized skills you need to know. One of those skills is typically persuasion, one that's a linchpin skill. And so it doesn't matter what you do for a living, you need to learn to be an effective communicator. If you don't look at it as sales as an effective communicator, that you can explain what's on your mind to someone in a way that actually they say, you know what, this person makes a lot of sense, both logically and emotionally. They seem to have my best interest at heart. They're not a hard-charging salesperson where they're just ramming something down my throat. They actually care. So there's all these things that have to line up. And the straight line system allows people who really aren't natural salespeople, who normally would feel very uncomfortable doing that, they feel comfortable. And once you feel comfortable, you tend to take action versus shy away from taking action. Because there are so many people out there that have great ideas. They don't take action because they just don't feel that they really have what it takes to go out and explain to other people. So that overcomes it.
So what we're going to do is we're going to put links to the Synergy Global Forum in the iTunes link, in the actual article that we post, and we're going to put it all together. Just have a few more quick questions for you. So you've been on CNBC Daily. I think you were on Fox Business earlier today. Where do you stand on cryptocurrency broadly and specifically?
Well, I'm not a fan. I mean, I think that I just got CNBC. I'm friends with a lot of people there, and I have this. I call.
I love Joe Kernan.
Well, yeah. Well, a week ago, I made a call. I said they're going to crash, and like literally 4 minutes later, they went from started going from 15,000 as low as 6,000. Now, you don't have to be a genius to know that, because basically anyone who has a half a brain on Wall Street knows they're going to zero.
Yeah.
In fact, Goldman Sachs just released an article today, just got it from CNBC, saying that all the cryptos they're all going to zero. Now, here's my problem with the cryptos. Okay, is that, and I love the millennials.
Yeah.
And I want you to know, guys, it's not your fault. So don't be mad at me. I'm trying to wake you up from this illusion that you've somehow, self-delusion echo chamber you've ended up in, where you think that you're going to reinvent the world and the banking system is going to vanish in favor of cryptocurrencies. Let me tell you the bottom line here.
Yeah.
Number one, there are inherent problems with the whole cryptocurrency model in terms of energy usage, transaction time. But forget all that for a second. Forget all that. Yeah. Here's the cornerstone issue. There's no way under the sun that the central banks of the world will allow their systems to lose control of the money supply.
Yeah.
They will squash it. They will destroy it. And here's what they'll do. No, they'll take blockchain technology, which has some uses, and they'll launch their own cryptocurrencies that are backed by the government. They're not going to let this become some free-for-all where the money supply now, think about the whole entire world, civilization and economics is based on controlling the money supply.
Yeah.
They use the money supply to stimulate the economy in bad times and to rein it in when it becomes overheated.
Correct.
So let's just lose control of that and give it to a bunch of kids, and some computers. The only way that Bitcoin will ever become anything is if the Terminator 2 happens. They launch all the missiles and everything blows up, and in the wake, the computers that launch the missiles will then say, oh, here's our cryptocurrencies, right? What will happen is these things, and right now there's such massive, and here's my other problem, there's massive fraud going on right now. Massive fraud. Whether it's Tether that doesn't exist, maybe half of it exists if you're lucky, the exchanges that are rampant, there's no regulation, and I know, unfortunately, firsthand that when there's not regulation, the damage that's done financially is so severe that what you're going to find here is this is far worse than anybody thought. So I think they're all going to zero and they're going fast. That's my opinion.
What would the old Jordan Belfort back in?
I'd probably be doing ICOs myself back in the old. I mean, listen, back in the old days, I wasn't really thinking much about ethics and integrity. I was thinking about how do you make as much money as you can as fast as you can. So what's happening right now is that's what's driving this. You have a lot of people who really are not concerned with the ethics of it all. And there's things like I saw before Facebook banned their advertising. Thank God. They had guys like this guy Altshuler who was this crypto genius. He told himself with some wacky hairstyle, so he looked like Einstein. This guy's like writing fraudulent things like every day on Facebook, like this is the next $1 million crypto. You're going to make $1 million overnight, like things that will put you in jail.
Loans.
Yeah, just terrible. So I, it's really, listen, it really irked me because I love the millennials, and it's become almost a religious fervor for them with these cryptos because they've been brainwashed and they don't understand how bad. Like what they've seen over the last week in cryptocurrencies, that's not a crash.
Yeah.
That's the begin. A crash is when it goes from like 8,000 to 2,001. There's no liquidity. It shuts down.
Correct.
You can't. This stuff evaporates. It's going to evaporate, and it's going to happen really fast. You already see China throw up the Great Wall.
Yeah.
They're done. India's done. I mean, right now what you see is this phase one is that the banking system is essentially isolating the virus. They've had every credit card company's cut off from Bitcoin. Everything's been cut off, right? That's step one. So next step is they're going to squash it, which is what they're doing right now. The SEC says, they want to now regulate all ICOs and make them register. Guess what? Once the ICOs have to register, it's over because they have to file 10Ks and Qs. They can't get audits. Hence Tether, they fired their auditor. So
Okay, so that makes sense. All right. So one last question, and I had to ask this, is you got to tell this helicopter story in Italy with the Navy SEALs.
No, well, as the yacht was sinking, we had to make room for the Navy SEALs to land, so we were forced to wait for a wave to lift the boat to the right, and then we pushed the helicopter over the side to make room for the landing of the SEALs. And, of course, at that moment in time, the one thing I was worried about was where were my Quaaludes? I'm sober for many years now, but at the time, all I can, we're going to actually run downstairs, get the drugs, and make ourselves back onto the battleship, and then get high again. That was Luckily, I got my check from the Lloyds of London, and that was that. But, yeah, that was an interesting day.
That's one of the funniest Jordan stories. So we're going to see you at the Synergy Global Forum, February 22nd at the Marriott Marquis. Jordan, thank you for being on the New Theory podcast. Before we go, one last question. Give us your philosophy on how, use a straight line method, right? Go into the Synergy Global Forum. But also, what's your general philosophy on how somebody gets rich in 2018? Your just general philosophy.
How you get rich in 2018? Hard fucking work.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, people get rich when they have a good idea, combined with smart execution and a lot of hard work. Okay, there are no. Listen, I believe that you get rich quickly.
Yeah.
But after years of hard work, it's like you work hard, don't get the result. Work hard, and then you finally line up the elements of success. When you start making money, it happens hard and fast. But there's a lot of work that goes into that, and my point is that you need to go out into life and say, okay, there are certain skills I'm going to need to really succeed and get what I want.
Yeah.
When you know what you want to do, identify what those skills are and learn them.
Yeah.
And then take action, massive action, okay, and use the philosophy of failing elegantly, succeeding wildly. Success is a formula. You could take all my money away, I'd be rich again in a few years because I know the rules of success and how you apply that. But it all comes down, at the end of the day, you're going to work really, really hard and not be scared to fail. Embrace failure, learn from it, move on, and try again, and eventually you will succeed.
Love it, Jordan. We'll see you in the Synergy Global Forum and this is the New Theory podcast.